in these next 12 diet principles, I'm going to go through them a little bit faster than I did with the first 5. So I'm going to try to keep it a bit more compact and precise. So now it's time for diet principle number 6. And that is to aim for losing no more than half a kilo of body weight per week. That is 2 pounds of body weight per week. Or if you are female, then it should be less than that. Maybe half a pound per week or 300 grams or 0.3 kilos per week, okay, if you're a female. The reason for that is that by limiting the amount of weight loss per week and keeping it realistic, you will be able to do it long term without having a so-called crash diet or yo-yo diet. If you're going into it too big of a calorie deficit, you are going to crash your hormone system and you're going to crash your metabolism quicker, and thereby it's not going to be sustainable. So forget everything about quick results because it's not going to last long. You're going to crash your metabolism and you're going to be starving and you're just going to want to go nuts eating again after you're done and suffer a lot. So if you want to minimize suffering and ensure long-term success, forget about quick results and think slowly but surely. Okay, so that's how we do with these diet principles, okay? Now, diet principle number 7 is very simple, and that is to avoid drinking your calories. So that means don't drink any sugary drinks. You've probably heard about this before, but the only time that I drink calories is when I drink a smoothie, either a vegetable smoothie or fruit smoothie, or both mixed together, usually after training or sometimes before training or after lunch. So don't drink your calories. Try to only drink water or coffee or tea. Or in some cases, if you're really craving something sweet, you can maybe drink a Diet Coke or Diet Fanta or something, but I don't recommend it because some studies show that it increases your appetite and you might end up craving even more later and getting really hungry. So try to stick to water, coffee and tea, but don't drink too much coffee because then you can't sleep and then you mess up your recovery. I usually drink coffee in the morning only, and that's it. And in some cases, if I'm feeling exhausted before gym, I might drink coffee before gym and then I'll have a better training. Okay, diet principle number 8 is to don't eat snacks randomly. Okay, there are some people, they just love to have like a little bit of bag of Crispies or have like a little bit of snacks here and there. But every time you're eating snacks, basically what happens in the body when you eat snacks is you secrete insulin, and that's a hormone that, as you probably know, takes the nutrition in your blood and stores it in your fat stores, okay? So either you're burning fat or you're storing fat, one of the two. So by not eating snacks, you will spend significantly more time in the fat burning state than in the fat storing state, which you usually spend some time in after a meal or even after a snack, okay? However, it's okay to have those small snack meals that I mentioned, like a smoothie after gym or maybe before gym. It's like a pre-workout snack or a post-workout snack is okay and can actually help you get good results with your training. Okay, but otherwise, don't have it as a habit of snacking here and there. That's an important diet principle. Diet principle number 9 is to mainly rely on foods that are low calorie density. So whatever goes on your plate, usually most of it should be of low calorie density. What you normally get in a restaurant is a big bunch of carbs, like rice for example, and then a small amount of meat, and then a medium amount of vegetables. What it should really be is it should be a big amount of vegetables and a small amount of carbs and a medium amount of meat or eggs or protein source. Okay, so they got it all wrong in the restaurants. I mean, that's in terms of nutrition value, but in their eyes, they are optimizing for profits. So they are giving you something where you feel like, oh, this is pretty good, it tastes good, and so on and so forth. They have the best profit margin and a pretty happy customer, but they're not gonna get a fit customer. That's the thing. So as a customer in a restaurant, you need to know what a fit customer wants to eat and then sort it out and split up the food in a way so you have this small amount of carbs and big amount of vegetables and medium amount of meat or protein source. Okay, but the point of diet principle number 9 is that the main thing that should be on your plate if you're trying to lose weight should be low calorie density food, and that's vegetables or in some cases fruit, but don't eat too much fruit because it's also a carb source, okay? Okay, diet principle number 10 is a bit of a mouthful, but it's going to be understanding the role of each macronutrient. You may already know all this, but I'm just going to go through it quickly to make sure that you know what each macronutrient is doing in the body and why it's important. And the reason I really want to put this in the diet course is that I want to make sure that you don't stop eating fats, for example, just because they're high calories. And I also want to make sure that you don't try to cut out protein because they have also higher calories. But these two nutrients like fat and protein are so important for the body to function. You also want to have some carbs because the body is built with glycogen stores. Glycogen is the simplest form of carb, which every carb you eat and even fats can be converted into glycogen, which is the body's main energy source, okay? Glycogen is just a fancy word for simple sugars. So let's get started. So let's start with carbs. Carbs is the main energy source of the body, as I just mentioned. And the main sources of carbs in your food is rice, potatoes, bread, pasta, grain, and sugars, and also fruit with fructose. Now let's talk about protein. As you probably know, protein is important because it's the main building blocks of muscle and muscle recovery. And you also probably know that protein sources are meat, eggs, milk products, or a combination of rice and beans with the 8 essential amino acids. So you see, that's the difficulty of being a vegan, is that you have to know about how to combine different vegetables to get a useful amino acid profile for the body to actually recover muscles and maintain muscles. That's why vegans often get very skinny and lose muscles if they don't study this very carefully and plan their diet accordingly. And now I'll talk about fats. So fats are mainly found in plant oils or cooking oils and meat fats. And there's also a special case, which is the egg yolk, which is super healthy because it has a lot of other nutrients as well, micronutrients. And the best example I can give for people to understand why an egg or an egg yolk is so nutritionally important is that it, per definition, contains everything that it needs to build a chicken or a living being, which is basically built of the same materials as a human being, like, you know, with bones, muscles, skin, and hair. Pretty much the same kind of materials. So don't take out the egg yolk, okay, that's the point here. The reason fats are so important and cannot be left out of the diet is that the essential fats, omega-3 and omega-6, are used as the building blocks both to build every cell membrane, the wall that is around the outside of every cell, but they're also important in other things such as vitamin absorption, and fats work as building blocks for hormones. Actually, the cholesterol molecule is extremely close in the molecular structure as testosterone, which is the most important hormone in the body for muscle recovery, or one of them, I should say. You know, in the 90s and the 80s, it was so funny. It was like fats were the enemy of being fit. And now we have gotten smarter. We know that fats are doing some really important jobs in the body, and it's one of the nutrient sources that has the most different type of tasks in the body and different benefits and jobs that fat molecules are used to carry out in the body. So just make sure you don't leave it out. So at least I use 1 teaspoon of coconut oil for cooking every meal, and then I use olive oil for salads, and I use flaxseed oil also to mix for salads. And sometimes if I don't get enough omega-6, I will use walnut oil, which is about 50% omega-6, and it tastes good, by the way. So I just take a spoon of walnut oil. But if you're eating a lot in restaurants, you're actually pretty sure that you get enough omega-6 already. In fact, in the Western diet, the problem is that most people, they get way too much omega-6 in their diet and not enough omega-3. The ideal ratio is 4 parts of omega-6 per 1 part of omega-3 in your intake, okay? And most people in the Western diet, they have this completely out of proportion. So they have maybe 10 times or 20 times as much omega-6 as omega-3, which is out of balance. Okay, and that has an inflammatory effect in the body. So if you want to reduce inflammation in your body, you have to balance out your intake of omega-6 down to a ratio where it's no more than 4 times as much as your omega-3. Okay? So that was a little bit about fats and essential fats. And again, I use coconut oil for cooking because it doesn't convert into trans fatty acids because it's mainly saturated fats. And without getting too scientific and getting into molecular structures, we'll just leave it at that. Okay, you can also use butter or meat fat that is also saturated fat, which is a perfect choice for cooking. And overall, you should try to get cold pressed oils when you buy oils because they are manufactured in a healthier way that doesn't use solvents such as benzene to extract more oil to make it more profitable. So when you buy cold pressed oils, you are paying a little bit more, but you are getting a much healthier product that doesn't have any leftover chemicals from the unhealthy processing. Now we've talked about all the macronutrient sources, and then I just also want to mention that vegetables and fruit should be your main source of micronutrients. Okay, and you can also definitely consider having a multivitamin tablet to make sure you're covered pretty good with your micronutrients. And I also have to mention hydration as part of the macronutrient and micronutrient spectrum, because hydration is pivotal for all biological processes to work properly, including weight loss and fat burning. Basically, the whole performance, or you could say that all processes in the body are optimized by having optimal hydration levels. And the way you adjust your hydration levels is by looking at your pee when you go to the toilet. If it looks like apple juice, then you're not drinking enough. And if it looks like water, then you're drinking too much. So it has to look somewhere in between, which is, you could say, something like white wine. Okay, so that was a little bit about hydration, explained in a funny but very hands-on way. Okay, finally we can move on to diet principle number 11, which is to stay hydrated by drinking mainly water. So don't drink any sweet drinks and balance your amount of caffeine intake from coffee and tea, as we talked about in the introduction already. The reason I put this principle in there is that the worst thing you can do in a diet is to drink sugary drinks. It's simply the easiest way to get fat, to say it as it is. So just avoid all sugary drinks. Okay, and even take it a bit easy with drinking big fruit smoothies, because often they mix in syrup unless you make it yourself. I do make, as I mentioned, a fruit smoothie for after my gym session with almond milk, and that is super delicious and also good for your progress and recovery. But make sure there's no added sugar if you're drinking these smoothies, okay?